And we are in the room. So, we have a level to go through, I believe.
In the anime My Next Life as a Villain Ace, there is a character named Sirius Deek.
I'm familiar with the series. Just, hello.
That was the cold opening, never mind. Welcome to the Serious Podcast, everybody. Also known as the Mad Play Podcast, during the Serious Sam First Encounter playthrough. Our hybrid between gaming and podcasting.
It's a lovely thing, isn't it?
Yes, it's not an original idea, but then again, it's not an idea that's been done often. So I claim this to be creative. Even though I promised to never be creative again.
Oh, that old chestnut.
Yes. Anywho.
Yes, anywho, we have things we would like to talk about with people.
Yes, let's see if they can be less problematic compared to last time, but we're not making any promises. Every time I try to bring up a game to discuss, we always end up touching on some problematic aspects of something, of some nature. So I believe you have something for me this week.
Yes, I do, because I essentially have been playing a game as of recent times on a phone I had handed down to me. Long story short, my old phone decided to not charge ever again, so I had to get a new phone, but I couldn't afford one, so I ended up getting a hand-me-down from someone. So long story short, I have a new phone now, and the first game I installed on it was a game by the name of Tales of Crestoria.
Oh, I saw that coming from a mile away, because I thought to myself, Devar is playing a mobile game. It's probably going to be a gacha game, because what else are you going to play on the phone? Bejeweled? Right? I know, right?
I mean.
Also, I know he likes classic RPG series, and he's into the Tales series, and there is a Tales of Crestoria game that's exactly all of that. Yes, of course you're playing Tales of Crestoria.
Yeah, so why wouldn't I be playing Tales of Crestoria? Oh, bugger. When did you come?
And I think I know where this conversation is going, because if you recall, I brought up my own gacha game experience with Arknights.
Yeah.
And also I have a new experience with Sino Alice, a game that I refuse to discuss in any capacity.
Because...
So I'm curious to hear about your experience with the mobile phone game.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. So, okay. So Tales of Crestoria.
How grindy, first of all?
I actually have not noticed that yet, because I've only essentially just started on it. So I've been through a few chapters, but it's still technically the beginning of the game. So I've only seen up to a certain point, let's put it that way. But I've seen enough to know what the game story is trying to go for, at least.
Hold on a second. Listen to this atmospheric music.
And the dripping of water.
Dun dun. This is The Thing. This is John Carpenter's The Thing. As I told you it was going to come last time.
Yeah.
It's very good. A very good cover, I'd say.
Oh, well, hello there, good sirs. Mind if I shoot you all? Okay. The door is closed. I think I noticed the mechanism deep inside the water. You have to dive in and start it. Beware, I also saw some creatures swimming in there. I think I've seen some of those creatures, so you don't need to worry too much about that.
Right, so About Tales
Tales
of
of Crestoria.
Crestoria.
Yeah. So I initially got this game because one, it's Tales of, and two, it advertises itself as having all the characters from Tales of that's in the crossover sort of style. So of course I would get it, because, I'm a huge,
Nerd.
well, I was gonna say I'm a huge whore for,
Okay, that's a bit even more intense than I was expecting.
I mean, I'm a huge whore for crossovers. I love crossovers so much.
I used to like crossovers too, but then I got an arrow to the knee.
Okay, I cannot get anywhere. Unless I can. Oh no, I cannot.
It said you have to dive into the water anyway.
Let's grab this. Okay, I'm waiting for...
Tales of Crestoria, keep the narration going.
Yeah, of course. Sorry, it's just when you're gaming at the same time, it gets a bit difficult sometimes. So anyway, so I got the game initially for that very reason, for the chance to have my favorites, in a party. And
right.
And I was surprised to see that once I opened the game, there was this animated cutscene like you would see in the main Tales of games, even an opening sequence with an animated opening as well. And they seem to have a story with original characters.
It's not surprising. The real money is in gacha games nowadays.
So there was this original story.
Keep in mind that this is a cloaca. He is swimming in sewer water.
Which is probably not good for his health.
Then again, nobody has used this sewer in thousands of years. Wait, no, he traveled back in time. Where are all the Egyptians? Again!
They're probably around. So anyway, let me think how to say this now.
Do you like it?
I'm enjoying it so far, just because the gameplay is simple. There's every character you get have their own abilities, uses. And all that rot that you would expect from an RPG, but very simplified. Because essentially what you have to do is that whenever you're going to a battle, you have to pick your targets and decide whether you want to do a normal attack or a very strong ability that has either a status that comes with it or does more damage or has an element assigned to it. Though characters also have their own assigned elements alongside that, so you have to keep those in mind. So essentially the gameplay is that simple that it's not really much to talk about on that front. The real meat and potatoes is in the fact that Namco decided to treat this as a mix between their Tales of World crossovers and the main Tales of games. Where basically they have an original story and original characters that you follow. Also, I'm very surprised actually to mention this, but usually in these gacha games, whenever you have the chance to summon a character you really want, that you love from a series, they usually have a reason, say, like in Brave Exvius, you're summoning the memories of the past or different worlds,
Yes, all of that nonsense. It's very simple in Arknights. You're just enrolling people or transferring people from other sections of your militaristic or pharmaceutical organization or whatever it is that we had in Arknights.
Yeah. So I'm not sure if it's because I haven't gotten that far enough into the story, but I think they would have told me it by now, considering it gave me the option to summon characters straight away. But it gives...
gacha games work like that. They give you a lot of elements, bonus material as you start playing, because they expect you to use it all right away, and then you become dependent to it. And that's where the elements you need in order to summon the characters that you want, that you might want, but you cannot have, that's where the game starts to become grindy.
Yeah. I've only had the chance to summon 3 times so far, just because of the fact that, I usually wait till I get enough gems or whatever to summon at least in bulk of 10, because it's much more, it's a lot more efficient, we'll put it that way, to do it that way, I've learned.
Okay, you just started playing this game, so since you are at the beginning of your mobile gacha experience, you are in the phase in which there is some sort of enthusiastic novelty to the whole proceeding. You need to come back to me and talk about this game once you've been playing it for a couple of weeks, or a month, or more.
Yeah, I know.
Like someone else I know.
Yeah, but I would like to talk about one specific thing. So anyway, 2 things, actually. The one thing I was about to touch on was they usually give a reason for how you're able to summon these characters, but apparently there's no such reason in this game. You just do it, and, there's no reason for it at all. So, and it's never acknowledged at all that you're summoning these characters to help you in your endeavors. Especially considering the story that I'm about to tell you is that's
irrelevant.
Yeah, it just seems like it's a bit weird considering the story that...
Nobody plays gacha games for the narrative.
Yeah, I kind of knew that, but... Whoa, oh, hello! So anyway, this story of Tales of Crestoria...
The story! I can hear all of your quotation marks as you said that.
Yes. So, okay. So, we're playing as... We're following the exploits of our main character, Kanata, who wants to be a hero.
I thought you were going to say he wants to be the very best.
Oh, he does. He wants to be the best hero of them all.
Does he want to be the new leader of the Hidden Leaf Village?
Well, I mean, no. But it's just that he just wants to be a hero. He wants to be a strong...
Does he want to become the king of games?
Heroic warrior. And, let me think now where to go with this here, because essentially he lives in a small village. He lives in an orphanage with lots of other kids, and
yes, and he's everybody's big brother, isn't he?
Yes, and the father.
Never heard that one before.
His father, who is named Cody.
Cody.
Yeah, I know, right? You have this kid who's called Kanata, and his dad, his biological father, is called Cody.
Fantasy worlds. Fantasy worlds, where sometimes characters have ridiculous names, and sometimes they're just named Cody.
I know, right? And the villagers all praise his dad as
the village gets attacked. Cut to the chase. When does the village get burned down?
By the protagonists.
Oh! Well, I was not expecting that.
Yeah, because you see, during the story, you get hints that the father is like, he's the greatest man to have ever lived. He is looking all over the place for...
Of course he is! He's named Cody!
He's looking for families to adopt these poor children who have no families of their own. And, the
mighty Cody.
And Kanata looks up to his dad. He really wants to be like him. To be someone that his dad could be proud of.
Yes, he wants to be somebody that people will call daddy at some point.
Yeah. And And also the protagonist has a love interest in the name of Micella.
Of course. Does she die?
Oh, let me sort this guy out really quick. Okay. And,
So far, you're describing to me a series of well-known tropes rather than a story.
yes. Excuse me while I tell you one of the things that comes up in this story as well. So, anyway, there's an element in this story that basically the game touches upon, and it's the concept of justice, so to speak.
Aha.
This is going to be a bit of an odd one to, well, I don't know how you're going to feel about it, considering how closely relevant it might be to today's society.
Oh boy.
Yeah, so there's this thing that all the people of the world basically, have, where basically in every city, every town, every village, there's this crystal-like orb thing that's in the center of town, which basically anyone can upload visuals of
Oh, come on!
things.
Oh, come on! Are you serious? Are you seriously telling me we have fantasy YouTube in this world?
Let me continue.
Is it fantasy Instagram?
So basically, people can post things to this to the thing, and then everyone watches this, and they see what has happens in it, and in this case, for example, it was a crime of an old woman getting her head bashed in by someone who stole from her.
Is this a Tales game or a Persona game?
I'm gonna keep on going with this because I want to.
Is this Shin Megami Tensei?
I'm wondering if I'm going the right way or if I'm going the wrong way. Okay, I think I was getting killed. That was what was going on. So anyway, I'm trying to remember what I was
Something about fantasy YouTube, a woman getting her head bashed in.
Yeah, and basically, if enough people see and hear said crime, and then they decide, and if enough people basically condemn the transgressor, as they call them in this world, then they are marked with the stain of guilt, and then enforcers come along to take them away. By magic, of course. Or some nonsense. Now, the thing is, one character decides to say, which is Micella, the love interest, she says to Kanata, this is great and all, but what would happen if someone got done for a crime they did not commit, or they were innocent?
Gee, I wonder if any of that was going to ever happen in this game.
Yeah, and Kanata, like the dumbass he is, basically says, don't be silly, only bad people end up getting condemned.
Oh, don't you just love it, that kind of white bread Tales protagonist? So obnoxiously optimistic. Nothing bad ever happens to people unless they are bad, and then the starting village gets burned down.
Yeah.
Gets framed for a crime he didn't commit.
Yeah.
And he says, "No, I gotta believe."
So yeah, the thing is about all this is that, Kanata basically is like, brings up his own red flag, so to speak, I would call it.
Playing it a bit fake, as it were.
Yeah. So to cut to the chase, it gets revealed that Cody is not a good man after all, and he is actually running a slave trade business, selling children on the black market.
Okay, okay, that's... Yes, okay.
And Kanata's love interest was going to be the next person to be sold. And he outright says, boys make good slaves for work, and women and girls get used for vulgar men to play with.
Right.
And here's me going, is this really a gacha game?
It seems to me you fumbled upon your own Arknights here.
Yeah. So then, I'm gonna cut to the chase even more. Cody is a piece of trash, and he deserves everything he's going to get. So Kanata stabs him.
Yes.
And then he gets, and because Cody has people with him who are in the know of the slave trade business, the entire village, I should say, is in on this whole business.
You don't say.
So then, after Kanata gave a chance for Misela to get away, she comes back for him and burns the village for him, just to save him.
Cool.
So, at this point, Kanata basically gets done for the crime. Well, he gets condemned for the crime of killing Cody because, as far as everyone knows, Cody was a good man. Why would his own son kill him? So, and that is pretty much what the story is going to be all about. It's going to be all about the dangers of letting society, condemn people without full context or the story. So, well, it's more like the good and the bad of that aspect.
It seems to be about, from what you described to me, it seems to be about society viewed as a castle of cards, in which the entire frail stability of society is held together by a profoundly corrupted system. And by outing said corruption in the system, you basically undo the entire infrastructure of society. This is from what you described to me, but honestly, this seems, as far as premises go, this seems a tad more ambitious than your typical Tales game. I haven't heard you once mentioning the world tree Yggdrasil, or some such, or the environment, or mana, or any of the usual,
trappings,
tropes and trappings of the series. This is different, and I cannot believe they reserved this kind of premise for the gacha game.
I know, right? That's what I'm
Also, how does the nonsense with the crossover actually fit within this narrative? This seems like the sort of original story that's not really meant to be fodder for crossover events.
I know, right? Even I was thinking that. Why are they doing something this ambitious for a mobile game? This feels like it should be a part of the main series, because these characters are well defined, they have personalities, and, and the story seems very big. They even do animated cutscenes, for goodness sakes. So,
like I said, there is real money in gacha games. They have an actual budget, especially if they are backed by big-time game publishers. And let's face it, I don't think the Tales series has been doing so well in the West ever since the runaway success of Tales of Symphonia. The fact that there is a mobile game about it pretty much implies that this is where the series is headed in the long run.
Yeah, because the last game was Tales of Berseria, which was recently released on the PS4.
Yes,
PS4.
I played Tales of Berseria.
Yeah.
It was a hot mess.
I cannot wait to enjoy that hot mess then, when I get to it. Oh boy.
Yes, also I did not really like it in terms of gameplay. That's the game in which I realized I don't really like this series overall, and its style of gameplay has become stale for me. Like all major Tales games, it has an intriguing premise that keeps you guessing, and it tries to have some sort of complex emotional denouement and character development. But then here comes the third act, and it all goes down to heck.
Yeah.
It is the classic trapping of JRPG, in that it has to become a JRPG story by the end of it. And also some really questionable character design choices that, if you ever plan to play Berseria, you will find out for yourself about what I'm talking here.
Yeah. So yeah. And so far, I have been introduced to one character I instantly in love with, in that game as well. In Tales of Crestoria, I should, stress. A guy by the name of Vicious, who comes and saves Kanata from the Enforcers.
So, Vicious from Cowboy Bebop is a character in Tales of Crestoria?
No, he's just a guy called Vicious who is very good with a pair of guns and has a long coat with black hair. And he basically, Kanata's like wondering why is he saved him, and all he just answers with is by saying, shut up and just enjoy the good time I'm having.
Oh, so he's a Simon Bond, essentially.
I don't know why. I just love the fact that he just casually says to him, like, just shut up and enjoy the good time I'm having. Just killing these enforcers.
Okay.
So, yeah, I'm trying to think if there's anything else I want to say, but I was just thinking to myself, first impressions, that's like, whoa, so the hero actually kills somebody and is actually getting done for it, but the fact that he's getting done for this, but without the context, for everyone to know and realize, is ridiculous. So, anyway, I just getting distracted now, so I think that's all I want to say, but, I'm just intrigued by this story and how far it will go with this premise, and whether it will be just right or if it will be too much. Yeah, need to get out. Okay.
Right. So, again, as I said before, you need to come back to me in a couple of weeks after you played it some more to see if you're still into it or if it has become stale and you've met a grinding wall in which you're not able to progress unless you actually start, navigating all the trappings that gacha games are well known to have.
Yeah. I will definitely
Because there is nothing more tragic. There is nothing more tragic than enjoying the plot of a gacha game and then finding out that progressing in this plot requires you to be a certain level that you are not at the moment, and in order to be on a certain level that you are not right now at the moment, you need to start grinding. And worst of all, there is only so many times you can play stages, because these games always have a system that prevents you from playing however long you want.
Yeah.
You have action points that are spent whenever you start a mission, so you need to be mindful of that, but you also need to level up both your characters and your profile in order to replenish the AP, and it's a whole can of worms, and it's one of the worst aspects of those gacha games.
Yeah,
because already you are grinding for your life. as in metaphorically grinding your face on a concrete wall in order to make the dream come true, so to speak. But then the game also tells you that you can only do that for a set number of times during this day, and you need to take a break. Either that, or you can buy items that replenish your AP with real money.
Yeah, just so you know, I'm avoiding that like the plague. So yeah, I just thought I'd give that as a first impression, and plus, I just wanted to hear your reaction to the idea of a game trying to cover like, today's social climate, so to speak.
Like I said, this seems an allegory for systemic corruption and how modern society is held together by the exploitation of lower class individuals. In this case, a literal slave market.
Yeah. So I thought that
this series is not subtle at all in its themes, but that's not necessarily a bad thing, especially if they bite as they should. They often don't, in my experience with the Tales games, mostly because it seems to me that every game after Tales of Symphonia tries to be Tales of Symphonia in some way or another.
Yeah.
But this new angle is pretty bleak and dark even by the standards of the series.
Oh. I hear harpies, but I don't see them. Anyway, so that's all I'll say about Crestoria right now under my first impressions, so I'll come back to say more on the gameplay, whether it's grindy or not. But you had something to talk about as well, did you not?
Yes, so remember last time when I talked about a game that I was really enjoying, but it had one problematic element that we discussed at length?
Yes.
That was Fate Tactics. Well, this week I have another game that I am enjoying immensely that has a problematic element to it.
Oh, what's new then?
It seems almost an unintentional trend with the games I've been playing as of late. So, do you recall a 2013-ish Nippon Ichi game by the title of The Witch and the 100 Knight?
I do remember that, yes.
So this game came about when I was in the height, the peak, if you will, of my Disgaea obsession, the flagship franchise of the Nippon Ichi company. Disgaea is this, as some of you might know, this wacky, insane, over-the-top, tactical RPG series. I'm trying to think of a nice and suitable preamble for this experience that will not require me to explain what Disgaea is in depth and what kind of games Nippon Ichi like to produce.
Wacky, silly, anime-esque
shenanigans. You know what? I'm just going to get down to it. The Witch and the 100 Knight. I've been playing that on the PlayStation 4. It's the Revival Edition, which I believe is called as such because it includes bonus content. Anyway, it was re-released on the PlayStation 4. It even had a sequel on the same platform, suggesting to me that this game was successful somehow, which searches me because I remember it coming out this one time in a decade ago, and then it was quickly forgotten because it was not a tactical RPG titled Disgaea, which, again, as I said, it is the flagship franchise. And if you talk to a NIS fan, a Nippon Ichi Software fan, they will talk to you about primarily Disgaea, because that's been the biggest cash cow for the company, even though it's not their only gaming series by far. It's not even their first tactical RPG game. In fact, I recall, and I do have, in fact, possess a copy of La Poussière Tactics, which is a direct precursor to the first Disgaea in terms of the basic gameplay aspects that would become popular later on in the series. Well, except for the whole picking up and launching units into the field. That's something that Disgaea will introduce and then perfect in later games. Anyway, The Witch and the Hundred Knight is not a tactical RPG. I think it's important to clarify this.
Yeah.
Like any and all NIS games, this has a unique and recognizable style. Nippon Ichi games always seem to employ this artist by the name of Takehito Arada. His art style is extremely recognizable and it's pretty much synonymous with all first-party Nippon Ichi games. You might also know Nippon Ichi, the American side of Nippon Ichi, to distribute several obscure games such as the HEX series, which is great and you should check it out. But those are not games made in-house by Nippon Ichi. The games made in-house by Nippon Ichi have a very recognizable aesthetic, a very recognizable pattern in its characters and the presentation, the tropes, and whatnot. So, you've spoken about the Tales series.
Yeah.
Right? The Tales series has a recognizable art style.
That it does.
Yes, because the lead character designer for the series is Naoko Urasawa, which is better known for being the author of Oh My Goddess. He has one of the most uniquely recognizable art styles. Speaking of long-standing RPG series that have recognizable art styles, Dragon Quest has always been drawn by Akira Toriyama of Dragon Ball fame, right? So, by this logic, Nippon Ichi is following the footsteps of the bigger gaming companies and the bigger RPG franchises by employing the same artist and the same style over and over again, because it ensures a pattern of recognizability. It ensures a
consistent
fandom.
Yeah, consistent look.
A consistent fandom with a consistent look that they would be drawn to. So, this company's choice of artist for their games, for the game's presentation, is one Takehito Arada.
Yeah.
Takehito Arada draws a lot of lolicon art.
Yeah, let's not beat around the bush.
You mentioned off podcast Lottes Toy, right?
Yeah, Astroti's toy, yeah.
Astaroth's Toy. Yes, I've seen that show.
Yes.
That is the quintessential lolicon romance trash that I regret ever seeing. And Astaroth has a cameo in Disgaea 4, I believe.
I had no idea.
She appears on the screen when one of the Omega spells launched, essentially. I don't know why, but that's the case. So, Nippon Ichi decided to hinge their entire aesthetic identity over an artist who draws lots of lolicon art.
Bugger.
And as a result, a lot of people who buy into Nippon Ichi games, well, they are drawn from that sort of fandom. You might recall my critique on Labyrinth of Refrain
Yeah.
on that Team Yume podcast some time ago, where it featured a unit that was basically an half-naked little girl.
Ah.
Yes. All right. So, aside from the problematic lolicon aspect of this individual's art style, and I'm going to have to look up his name again before I forget it, I will have to admit that Nippon Ichi does want a uniquely recognizable style. He is not a bad artist. He is capable of drawing all sorts of body types.
Yes, because, I mean, Jennifer, am I right?
That said, he usually has a pattern when it comes to drawing body types. If it's an adult woman, she looks like an inflatable guy from a used car salesman lot, except with breasts. And if it's a small child, then, well, that's where his talent
Lies.
comes in. Yes, he draws very cute children, and I am sort of a bit wary of that. Also, I read here that Arada is also a chief executive officer of Studio Toei Fuf. Oh, and by the way, his art has been also featured in a Fate/Grand Order game.
Oh, has it? I actually did not realize that. I knew the Danganronpa's artist featured as an artist in that game as well. He drew Cleopatra and Edmond Dantes. I have.
Oh, and also remember Plain Air from the original Disgaea?
Yeah.
That character named Plain Air, yes, spot the pun there. Apparently, she comes from one of his doujinshi publications. Doujinshi, I remind you, is a self-publication, essentially. So his Wikipedia page mentions only his video game works. So it's not really helpful for our conversation right now, but you know what? I want to move quickly away from that problematic aspect because that's not what I want to talk about.
Yeah.
I want to talk about the game The Witch and the 100 Knight.
Yeah.
Which, as I told you, I think it's pretty good. It's not a tactical RPG. It's a hack and slash RPG.
Okay, that's different.
Somewhere in between Diablo and Dark Souls. Before Dark Souls became a mega franchise, that is. So it's a bit unpolished, but it's fun once you know what you're doing. Presentation-wise, this game is one of the ugliest I've ever seen. The art is fine, because like I said, this person is a good artist that makes questionable artistic choices.
Yep.
But when it comes to the actual 3D environments and characters, it's one of the ugliest pieces of media I've ever seen. Everything is either too saturated with color, too shaded, or too cluttered. And sometimes all of the above at once. You can raise the gamma however you want, but it does not improve the visibility or the fact that there are constantly objects and the buildings obstructing your view of the character as you move it in the 3D map. You control, by the way, the 100 Knight of the title, which is a silent protagonist that only exists to move the plot along for the benefit of the real protagonist, which is the witch, the great swamp witch, Metalia!
Natalia.
So let's talk a bit about the typical tropes and narrative premises of a Nippon Ichi game, because now this is relevant to the trouble ahead.
Okay. Go ahead.
This game follows the typical narrative structure of an NIS game to a T. If you played Disgaea, you have basically seen what all of their stories are like. It starts off with some sort of megalomaniac misfit who's out to cause havoc and chaos, maybe, I don't know, taking over the world, or becoming the overlord of hell, or in this case, spreading the poisonous, nauseous swamp all over the land to let people know how great you are and your swamp. This is the goal of the witch.
So
And then basically you play as what would be the villain in any other game. Or at least it is presented as such, but this is where the subversion happens, because most of the times these characters turned out to be very lonely dorks who don't really know what they want up until they are faced with the prospect of actually making friends. And as such, a bunch of other misfits that don't have a place in the world end up orbiting around their own planet. The planet that is the main character, that is. And then the story goes from light-hearted and darkly humorous to serious when the plot actually kicks in the second half. And depending on the game, it might either be extremely bleak or a combination of bleak and wholesome. Labyrinth of Refrain gets very bleak, and I realize how confusing this must sound if you've never heard about either The Witch and the 100th Night or Labyrinth of Refrain.
yeah.
The difference is that the gameplay in The Witch and the Hando, yes, that's going to be much easier to say now, is that it doesn't make me want to bash my head on a concrete wall in frustration. Because Labyrinth of Refrain was an overcomplicated dungeon crawler of the most frustrating and time-consuming variety.
Right.
Whereas The Witch and the Hando is actually surprisingly well-paced for what it is and enjoyable, and it's not grindy unless you want to make it grindy. There are ways to properly exploit the tools that the game gives you that make the experience enjoyable and worth your time. I just wish that A, the presentation was better, and B, the level design wasn't as cluttered or frustrating as it was, especially when you have to navigate shockingly large areas that you have to automap, and you are consuming some sort of action points whenever you do so, so you have to pace yourself for everything that you do. Which is, again, a mechanic that returns in Labyrinth of Refrain in an objectively worse manner. So,
Yeah.
The Witch and the 100th Night, as I said, follows that typical narrative structure of the NIS Disgaea experience. There is the megalomaniac misfit, which is in full megalomaniac form this time around. And then there are a bunch of misfits that join afterwards, and then the plot gets intense, and then there is intrigue, there is drama, there is tonally deaf humor, you know, the works.
Yep, the usual.
The usual. If you are a fan of NIS, like I unfortunately am, then you know what to expect when you play The Witch and the 100th Night. Except and this is where we get to the problematic aspect.
Okay.
The Witcher self is utterly, unredeemably rotten to the core from the very start. And not in an endearing, charming manner. The problem with Metalia is that from the very beginning, she's not a charming anti-hero or a goofy, dorky villain who's trying too hard to be villainous, but then turns out to have a heart of gold.
Yeah.
The Metalia in the early moments of the game is extremely dastardly. She does some truly unspeakable, awful things to people, and the game does not know how to frame those situations. I'm trying to think how to properly describe to you what the problem with Metalia is, because, like I said, they do try to redeem her later on, to justify and recontextualize her actions and behavior with the information presented to us by her backstory, and God forbid they try to make her a tsundere, even.
God.
Which would almost work, considering she has been a loner with no social skills and nothing but rage and hostility for the world. So when she finds out that she can have friends, she doesn't know how to react to the information. So that's the one time in which being a tsundere actually makes sense with the character and what she's going through. The problem is that when we get to the point, it's impossible to buy it, it's impossible for me to get behind it, because of the horrible, unspeakable things she does at the beginning of the game, which make her so completely unredeemable that it's not really possible to
Look past
convince me that her getting friends, her getting better as a person, is something that she could earn as a character. She's not even a compelling antagonist or villain in the first hours of the game. She's very one-note and one-dimensional. She wants to cover the world in swamp and do really unsanitary things to the people she despises, which are basically everyone in the world. But all of that would be fine, in a manner of speaking, if she didn't do what she actually ended up doing. Which, again, not only it is horrible on a fundamental level, it is also framed in a very tonally deaf manner. In typical Nippon Ichi fashion, whenever something disgruntling, whenever something absolutely disturbing happens to somebody, whenever Metalia does something evil to somebody, they always play this wacky, cheery music that's typical of the Disgaea series, which doesn't fit at all the severity and disturbing nature of the moment, making it a lot more disturbing because of that tonal dyslexia, and making it clear that they think something like that is actually funny. So that is why Metalia doesn't really work as a character, doesn't really work as a dorky, megalomaniac, try-hard of a villain that gets a redemption arc. Because the character, as it is presented at first, is written in such a way that doesn't really warrant or deserve a redemption arc. taking a cue from the tonal deficiency of the game, here is a completely tonally deficient little extravaganza for you all, and I hope you enjoy it. Welcome, one and all, to the first and last episode of What the Hex is Wrong with You? Our grand pop quiz game show extravaganza, in which we all try to figure out together just what the hex is wrong with the great witch Metalia. Game show music plays, yay! Fake crowd noises, yay!
Tales of Crestoria's guitar string.
Sure, why not? In this game, our one and only contestant, that's you, will be presented with a series of scenarios starring our fantabulously rotten magical girl, and will then be tasked to correctly guess just what the hex, we have to say it at least 3 times per sentence, would she do / has already done in a given context.
Okay.
So basically, it's the format of Who's Going to Be a Millionaire. I think everybody's familiar with that.
Yeah.
Let's not waste any more time with trifle preambles that make very little sense, and let's get on with the first question. Yay! Da, 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 da. All right, so I bet you were not expecting this. It's
No, it's not.
okay, because I thought to myself, there truly is a lot to say about this game and what it does wrong with the character, but why take it all so seriously when the game itself cannot take it seriously? So here I am with a pop quiz game show extravaganza.
And
all right,
what's
so
the question?
All right, let's begin. But first, a message from our sponsor.
And who would that be?
Nobody. Nobody's paying for this. That's why it's the first and last episode.
Okay. That makes sense. Oh,
okay. First question. I'm not looking at the screen anymore because I have to read this completely unprepared text that I have obviously prepared.
Yeah, totally unprepared.
All right. Again, question number 1. At the end of Act 1, Chapter 1, Metalia confronts the forest witch Malia, for whom she harbors a great resentment.
Right.
Malia was weakened after fighting the 100 Knight, which, I remind you, is basically the witch's familiar / slave, who does all the work. Malia is unable to defend herself at this stage. Before Metalia could strike her down, the forest witch confesses to be the girl's mother?
Alright.
Yes, so there is that twist. How does the great swamp witch react to this shocking revelation? A. She rips Malia's spine out of her body and stabs her in the neck with it. B. She bounds Malia and slowly dips her into a pool of acid, enjoying her screams of pain as her body dissolves. Or C. She turns Malia into a mouse and then proceeds to summon a bunch of horny male mice for the purpose of raping her. Or D. All of the above.
All the above.
Is that your final answer?
I'm going to go to extreme. All the above.
Unfortunately, the answer is not D. The answer is C.
Yeah, I did go with my gut on that one, but I thought to myself, ridiculousness.
Yes, but so again, the answer is C. Upon learning that Malia was her mother, she didn't question it. She believed her right away. And as a result, she decided to transform her into a mouse. And then to conjure up a bunch of male rats, horny male rats, for the purpose of raping her as a mouse. All the while saying to her, and I am paraphrasing here, if you are really my mother, then I want you to give me hundreds of little brothers and sisters, mommy dearest. Of course.
Okay.
Naturally, while all of this was happening, cheery music was playing in the background. So this is my first true taste of what kind of awful shite Metalia gets off to. And I, as a player, as a member of the audience, am supposed to buy that this evil witch can be redeemed after literally forcing her mom into a rat gangbanging. And I know for a fact that that actually does happen off screen, because there is a sequel to that later on, where Malia returns as a mouse, and she complains about it in comical fashion.
Okay.
This game... This game is trash, but I ate it all up, because I just could not believe they were doing this. Even by the standards of Nippon Ichi, this is some sort of new low or new height, depending on how you view it. It's really quite something. And why would anybody think this was a good or funny idea? Even when they do explain why she, Metalia, real name Leah, by the way, why Leah hated her mother so much, and we were presented with the backstory, it still does not justify or warrants rodent rape. What kind of awful nonsense is this? How am I supposed to like this character now? This character that's presented as the absolute protagonist. How am I supposed to get behind her in any meaningful way if she does these kinds of horrible monstrosities?
I have no idea, honestly. I would just, I would not bother.
I know, right? Anyway, that was the first question.
Oh,
Let's
God,
get to
more.
question 2. Oh, there are at least 3 more of these. Oh, yes. Question 2. In Act 1, Chapter 2, Metalia meets up with a human girl by the name of Visco, who was cursed to look like a cute half-dog beastman. That's legitimately one of the best designs in the game, by the way. She came to the swamp with her entourage to find the forest witch Malia. Yikes! In the faint hope that she could have a way to lift her curse. So, what does our hero, our anti-hero, our likable protagonist Metalia do in this situation? A. She lies to them, pretending to be the forest witch, sends them on a wild scavenger hunt for the ingredients of her cure, then watches in amusement as this unfortunate group tries to survive, getting attacked by deadly beasts if the inherently poisonous fumes of the swamp don't get to them first. B. She forces the dog woman to become her pet against her will. C. She bounds Visco in the swamp, after she was inexplicably enlarged and deprived of her clothes, all the while making snide remarks about her giant naked breasts. Or D, all of the above.
Is it gonna be all the above?
Ding, 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 ding! We have a winner!
Oh my gosh.
100 points to Devar. Yes, all of the things I just listed, the horrible, messed up things I just listed, they do happen to this one character. She comes to the forest and then the swamp. She meets up with Metalia, believing she was Malia, which, as I remind you, is busy being a rat, being chased by horny male rats. And then Metalia just watches her squirm in the forest as, well, horrible things happen to her and her men, which also hate her because she's different, because of the curse. Because of the curse. And then something weird happened. She sorts of become attached to this girl in her own way, but she doesn't know how to process it, so she essentially forces her to be her pet, right?
Yeah.
But not before she bounds her into the swamp, and inexplicably she's also a naked giant. While that was happening, I had to take a double, triple take when I saw that scene, by the way.
I can imagine.
And also she makes a snide comment about, well, her whole situation. She says something along the lines of, you have the breasts the size of a turkey.
Wow, what a compliment.
Yes, so this is the beginning of a healthy relationship. And I'm not even joking. The friendship between Metalia and Visco here will be the emotional crux of the entire story.
You sound so exasperated as you say that.
I mean, it almost works. The second half of the game is so much better, comparatively speaking. But that beginning was extremely faulty. It's Nippon Ichi syndrome through and through. Alright, question 3, Devar!
Oh gosh, question 3.
In Act 1, Chapter 3, Metalia confronts an actual bad person for a change. The witch Duchess Valentine, inexplicably pronounced Valentine in the game, has forced a bunch of imps to be her personal slaves. The good guys beat her up and she's left literally powerless as a result. Not mentioned in this question, Vor.
Oh, alright.
How does Metalia dispose of the rival? A. She lets Valentine's slaves disembowel her after casually letting slip that the witch's powers had been drained. B. She bounds Valentine and slowly dips her into a pool of acid, enjoying her screams of pain as her body dissolves. Or C. Horny mice. Again. Or D. All of the above.
I think that... Is it the acid?
You mean B?
Yeah, is it B?
Is this your final answer?
I'm a bit unsure about this one, but I might as well go with it just to get it moving along.
Unfortunately, that's not the right answer. The right answer is A. So, this is more interesting and nuanced compared to all the other over-the-top nonsense that we've seen before. But essentially, Visco, which is now, I guess, part of the group, inexplicably, I've been using the word inexplicably a lot, but I think it's apt
Yes,
at this point.
it is.
Bisco is part of the group, and she manages to make Metalia promise her she will not harm the witch, even though she is a bad person. Well, she does not put her hands personally on the Duchess. She manipulates her slaves into killing her because she knows how much they hate her. And, well, guess what? She has no power now. She's all yours.
Yay!
So she watches in glee and delight as they absolutely disembowel her, rip her apart, dismember her, and then disappear into a staircase of darkness as the screams of pain echo through the palace. Of course, cheery music is playing during all that.
Oh, yeah, of course. That makes it all better and much softer. It makes it much more, softer. Easier to take in, right?
This is the game, baby. Okay, we have one final question, because after that, she starts to get a little less monstrous, a little better, I suppose. Even though it doesn't really work for the reasons we have established up until this point. Question 4, in Act whatever, chapter whenever, I don't even care at this point.
Yeah.
Metalia crushes the big witch Walpurgis party. The big gathering of witches from which she was not invited, and she was also humiliated earlier on.
So
What does she do in this party crushing exactly?
Yeah.
A. She drowns everybody in poisonous swamp. B. She turns into a giant naked version of herself and starts raining lightning spell on the party. C. Orny mice everywhere. Or D. All of the above.
It's gonna be the giant woman thing, isn't it?
I am not even going to pretend that it's not. It's definitely B. You smell a theme with this character. Okay, so the funny thing about this turn of events is that her form is clearly, obviously naked, but they try to censor it by lowering the gamma and the contrast as much as they could. But you could clearly still see the nipples. Oh, and by the way, I happened to find out hours after that into the game that one of the witches there actually died because of the poisonous swamp.
Right.
But that was after I wrote these questions and answers, so it doesn't count.
All I want to see is a giant woman. A giant woman.
A giant naked woman, preferably bound into swamp water, naked, and she has to be an elf dog princess. It's a very specific kink, I realize, but hear me out. Right, so I think you have a more clear idea as to what kind of game this is.
Yeah, I think I get it.
At least in the early stages, because, again, much like with Labyrinth of Refrain, these games have the faultiest of false starts. But then they get much more interesting and intriguing later on. And I am, at this point, legitimately invested in this game. Perhaps against my better judgment. There is also a side story included in the game titled The Tower of Illusion, which is much better compared to the main story, because right off the bat we are presented with a version of Metalia, a different version of Metalia, with a different backstory,
Yeah.
Pretty much the same demeanor, but tweaked just enough to make her more tolerable and then downright likable once she embraces the fact that she's getting friends. And it has 100% less of mommy dearest related incidents.
Yeah.
So that's a plus. Also, it's basically the Wizard of Oz, I realized. All the characters that appear in this side story are also the characters that we have in the main story. And they all pretty much play the roles that were of the Cowardly Lion, the Tin Man, the Scarecrow, and even the dog Toto and Dorothy.
Right.
In the original Wizard of Oz. And I realized that only at the end of it. So that's really well played on the game's behalf. I did not have high expectations for it, but because of that, it over-delivered. Honestly, if it weren't for that Mommy Dearest incident and subsequent incidents also, I might have actually liked more Metalia. Specifically, I would have loved her dynamic with her servant, Arlecchino.
Right.
Which is a very, very, very sassy servant, might I add. He always talks like this, yes. And I love it because it's the very same dynamic between Miss Piggy and Uncle Deadly from the Muppets. There is something there interesting thematically. Something profound. Well, okay, maybe profound is a big word. Something poignant to say about loneliness, living a life of separation from the world, or feeling lonely because the world is against you and your very existence. And finding kinship in these feelings with people who are alike, fellow misfits, which is a recurring theme in pretty much every Disgaea game, and it's been their biggest selling point in terms of a narrative. So it's nothing new, but it could have still been good if it wasn't for that terrible beginning.
Yeah, that's understandable considering. Oh, bugger, I'm getting really mauled here.
So, at this point, I'm about to beat The Witch and the 100 Knight at the point of this recording. Although when this video finally comes out, I will have probably already beaten this game a couple of weeks ago.
Yeah, probably, yeah.
Yes. That's pretty much all I have to say about the game right now.
Yeah.
I like it. It's trash for the most part, but surprisingly, it's my kind of trash. The kind of trash that I cannot put down because I just need to know what else is it going to pull out of the proverbial hat. It's the kind of trash that's creative and never boring, in that sense. And when it starts to get legitimately good, it's a nice bonus. Would I ever recommend it? That's the difficult question, because I mean, would I ever recommend a Nippon Ichi game to any sane person? No, not really. They are a bit too spicy. And also, as we mentioned before, the lead artist has problematic habits. Problematic habits in his art style and presentation. But when it's good, it's good. Yes, that'll do it.
Yeah. By the way, your whole talk about the music thing. It reminds me of my feelings on the one particular music in Tales of Crestoria because in Tales of Crestoria there's this main menu music which basically has this jovial, very happy sounding Spanish-like strumming of the guitar, and usually it's like, and when the game like goes from story and then it takes you back to the main menu, so you start to feel like the music takes you out of the feeling you just had about a moment.
Yes.
So it's like
the music in the series in Disgaea or Nippon Ichi games is always the same. Wacky novelty music that occasionally gets dramatic, but only for the scenes that they want you to think are dramatic. But it is very recognizable at the very least. It's not necessarily good, but it can be. But it's not always well employed, as we
bugger, come on.
well established by now.
Yeah. So yeah, I was gonna say about the music. I find it funny that serious situation happens and suddenly, it takes you back to the main video. It's like, and so it gives off the feeling of, oh no, my dad isn't the dad I knew all along. He was actually part of the slave trade.
Cheery music plays in the background. Yes, I understand that all too well. When Bambi's mother dies, and then immediately in the next scene, cheery springtime music.
Yeah, so...
Hey, I have a suggestion. I have a...
Yeah. Don't use the rocket launcher. I wasn't using it all the time.
Don't get stuck in corners. Also, don't die. Have you thought about that? Have you thought about not dying?
Have you thought about not backseat driving?
No.
I'm gonna Duck Tracy these people.
You're going to Duck Tracy these people?
Yeah, like Daffy.
I know. Sometimes I randomly think about that classic Looney Tunes. Jukebox Joe! That's the only name I can remember for all that rogues gallery.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't remember them all either.
Wolf! Big bad wolf!
Wolfman!
Jukebox Joe! Or something.
Batman! Pipopus!
Sure.
I have no idea. I'm just saying random. Just saying random names that could have possibly been.
I would have to watch that episode, that cartoon, again.
Oh, come on. Where did you all come from? Seriously?
Great Witch Metalia! So I am all out of topics, as it were. That was pretty much my big topic for this episode.
Yeah,
for this podcast.
Tales of Crestoria was essentially as mine. I'm starting to regret starting this level.
You don't have to continue it right now. We can continue it next time.
I mean, I guess we could do that if I die more times than I care for.
Okay, so if you die again, we continue next time.
Yeah, because otherwise this is gonna get ridiculous. So, come on. Okay. I've been playing Fall Guys recently, just so you know.
Oh, do you want to talk about Fall Guys? Everyone else is doing it.
I mean,
Well,
it's a charming, silly game in my opinion.
yes. Somebody pointed this out on Twitter, and I think it's worth reiterating it. There once was Takeshi's Castle.
Yes, I remember that show.
Classic Japanese game show starring Takeshi Kitano, the titular Takeshi of the castle
Yep.
that people were raiding, and he presents a series of challenges that would also inspire games like Wipeout, right?
Yep.
Then Takeshi, as Big Takeshi, plays the evil teacher in the film adaptation of Battle Royale. Battle Royale ends up inspiring the whole Battle Royale video game genre. And now we have a Battle Royale game that's openly inspired by Takeshi's Castle. Full circle.
Yes, it is, isn't it? Quite.
Okay, actually, this was pointed out, I believe, by Casey Explosion on Twitter.
Right.
So I need to shout that out, and I did.
Yeah, it's fun. I say it's more about its silly charms. It depends on how much you're into platforming and trying to win an episode of those sort of games with 60 other people online. So, it's a nice, fun distraction that you can go quickly in and out of, but I wouldn't say it's the best game I've ever played.
I mean, personally, my only consistent, successful experience with Battle Royales would be Tetris 99.
Yeah.
Interestingly enough.
Well, at least in Fall Guys, basically every challenge they give you is like a different one at least. Yeah, so that's all I can say about it. There's different challenges.
Well, that's all that there is to say at this stage,
Yeah.
really, about Fall Guys. You play what you get,
Yeah.
and you get what you play.
Yeah.
It's honest in its delivery,
Yeah.
in its premise.
But yeah, let's call it a night now because this is getting a tad annoying for me.
Let us come back. Let us return next time, refreshed and hopefully with 100% less Mummy Dearest incidents.
Yeah.
And let's see if we can actually discuss anything, be it a film or a video game, that's not inherently problematic in one aspect or the other.
I mean, I watched the Sonic movie, so...
That ship has sailed 6 months ago for me.
Yeah. But still...
I did a whole podcast about it. You might have noticed.
Maybe. That's all I'll say on it. I watched it, at least.
Well, yes, that's all you need to say, really.
Good night and take care, buddy.
Yes. Good night, everybody. Jukebox Joe!
Oh, I love how you make my lattes!